For 3 long years, my home felt like a tomb, silent and empty after my son, Julian, vanished from my life. Then, on my 63rd birthday, a package arrived. Inside, a bottle of vodka, an exquisite, crystal-cut masterpiece valued at nearly $4,000. I couldn't drink it. My heart condition wouldn't allow it. When Julian called, his voice trembling as he asked, "Dad, how was the vodka?" I simply replied, "I gave it to our family lawyer. He loved it." A horrifying silence stretched between us. Then he screamed, "Dad, what the hell did you do?" What unfolded in the next 24 hours was beyond anything I could have imagined. I'd been awake since 5:30 a.m., an old cop habit that refused to die. 25 years on the force, 3 years retired, and my internal clock still ran on the same schedule. Up before dawn, coffee brewed by 6. My late wife, Kate, used to say I was allergic to sleep. She was right about most things. The doorbell rang at 7 a.m. sharp. I wasn't expecting anyone. My 63rd birthday wasn't an occasion people remembered anymore. Kate had always made a fuss, baking her lemon cake, inviting neighbors I barely knew. But she'd been gone 5 years, and birthdays had become just another Tuesday in October. I set my coffee down and walked to the front door. Through the window, I saw a delivery truck pulling away into the gray Oregon drizzle. On my porch sat a medium-sized cardboard box, a neat shipping label, but no return address. I picked it up, heavier than expected. The label read, Archer Dalton, 47 Maple Ridge Road, Ridgeview, OR, 97401. The sender line was blank, just a tracking number and a date stamp from 2 days ago. Portland. Portland. A knot tightened in my gut. I hadn't heard from anyone in Portland in 3 years. I carried the box inside, set it on the kitchen table, and stared at it. The rational part of my brain, the detective part, said to open it. The other part, the part that had learned silence from certain people, was a gift, told me to throw it in the trash. I grabbed a knife and slit the packing tape. Inside, nestled in foam peanuts, was a bottle. Not just any bottle, a work of art. Crystal-cut glass, shaped like a rectangular tower, the liquid inside a deep amber that caught the morning light. The label was black velvet, embossed with platinum lettering, Blackthorn Crystal Reserve, 1952. This wasn't a $50 liquor store pickup. This was the kind of bottle you kept locked behind glass. Tucked beneath was a small, cream-colored card, handwritten in ink I recognized before I even read the words. "Happy birthday, Dad. I hope this makes up for lost time. Julian." My son's handwriting. Neat. Precise. I hadn't seen it in 3 years, not since the last terse note he'd sent, explaining he was moving to Portland for work and wouldn't be able to visit. No phone calls, no holidays, no explanation. And now this. I picked up the bottle again, turning it slowly. The label said 1952. If that was accurate, this bottle was worth more than my truck. I pulled out my phone and searched the name. Blackthorn Crystal Reserve, 1952. Last known auction sale, $3,800. $3,800 for vodka. Julian was an IT specialist. Decent money, but not throw away $4,000 on a birthday gift. Money. Not the Julian I remembered. The kid who'd called me 2 years ago asking for a $500 loan to cover rent. The kid who'd never paid me back. I set the bottle down and stepped back. Something about this didn't sit right. Maybe it was the 3 years of silence. Maybe it was the fact that Julian had never been sentimental, never one for grand gestures. Or maybe it was just the old cop in me, the part that had learned to trust my gut when things felt off. And this felt off. I thought about Kate. She would have been thrilled. She would have opened the bottle right then, poured 2 glasses, toasted to reconciliation. She always believed Julian would come around, that the distance between us was just a phase. But Kate wasn't here. And I'd learned in the 5 years since cancer took her, that time didn't fix everything. Sometimes it just made the cracks deeper. I glanced at the bottle again. Part of me wanted to crack it open, see if $3,800 tasted different than the $15 stuff I kept in the cabinet. But another part, the louder part, told me not to. Not yet. Not until I knew what this was really about. Instead, I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. David Whitmore. David had been my lawyer for 30 years. He was also one of the few people I still considered a friend. The phone rang twice before his voice came through, warm and familiar. Archer, happy birthday, old man. What can I do for you? David, you got time this afternoon? I need to swing by your office. Talk about my will. There was a pause. Your will? You feeling all right? I looked down at the bottle on my table, amber light pooling around its base like a warning. I just want to make sure everything's in order. Health's been not great since Kate. Figured it's time to update a few things. Of course. Come by around 4 o'clock. I'll pull your file. Thanks, David. Oh, and one more thing. I'm bringing you a gift. Consider it a thank you for putting up with me all these years. David chuckled. You don't need to do that. I insist. I hung up and stared at the bottle for another long moment. Then I carefully placed it back in the box, wrapped it in the foam peanuts, and sealed the lid. If Julian wanted me to drink this, he was going to be disappointed. By the time I climbed into my truck that afternoon, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining. I set the box on the passenger seat, buckled in, and turned the key. The engine coughed to life, and I pulled out of the driveway, heading toward downtown Ridgeview. The bottle sat beside me, silent and heavy, a question I wasn't ready to answer. 4 p.m. found me standing outside Whitmore & Associates, a 3-story brick building on Main and Oak. I grabbed the box, locked the truck, and pushed through the front door. David's secretary, Mary, looked up and smiled. Mr. Dalton, David's expecting you. Go on back. I walked down the narrow hallway to David's office and knocked twice before stepping inside. David stood behind his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, a file folder open in front of him. He looked up and grinned. Archer, good to see you. What's in the box? I set it down on his desk carefully and met his eyes. Vodka. Expensive vodka from my son. David raised an eyebrow. Julian, I thought you two weren't talking. We're not. That's why I'm here. David studied me for a long moment, the kind of look he'd perfected over 30 years of lawyering. Patient, measured, waiting for the rest of the story. Then he turned his attention to the box, lifting the lid with careful precision. He pulled out the bottle, and I watched his eyebrows climb. Blackthorn Crystal Reserve. He turned it slowly, light catching on the cut glass edges. Archer, this is what, $3,000? More like $3,800, according to the internet. David let out a low whistle and set the bottle down gently. And Julian sent you this out of the blue after 3 years? That's what the card said. Happy birthday. Hope it makes up for lost time. David leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the bottle. Lost time, or something else, he murmured. Archer, you know as well as I do, gifts like this aren't usually given without an agenda, especially after 3 years of silence. I nodded, my gut clenching. That's why I brought it to you. I have a bad feeling about it. A bad feeling? I have a heart condition, David. It's not severe, but it means I have to be careful. No alcohol, no strenuous activity. David's eyes narrowed. And Julian knows this? He knows. He's known since I was diagnosed 5 years ago. So he sends you a $3,800 bottle of vodka, knowing you can't drink it. David picked up the card again, rereading Julian's message. Hope this makes up for lost time. He looked at me, a grim expression on his face. Archer, you're not suggesting... I don't know what I'm suggesting, David, but I've been a cop for a long time. My gut tells me something is very wrong here. I want you to hold on to this bottle. Don't drink it. Don't even open it. Just keep it safe. David nodded slowly. Consider it done. Now, about your will. We spent the next hour going over my estate, updating beneficiaries, and discussing my wishes. I made sure Emma, my granddaughter, was well provided for, regardless of what Julian might try to do. As I was leaving, David walked me to the door, the vodka bottle still on his desk. Archer, he said, I'll look into this. I have a few contacts who might be able to shed some light on Julian's recent activities, just in case. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. I left his office feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. The bottle was out of my hands, but the unease remained. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Julian. His voice was strained, almost frantic. Dad, how was the vodka? Did you enjoy it? I took a deep breath. Julian, you know I can't drink alcohol because of my heart. I gave it to David Whitmore. He said he loved it. A stunned silence. Then, a roar. What? You gave it to your lawyer? What the hell did you do, Dad? The line went dead. My blood ran cold. His reaction confirmed my worst fears. Julian wasn't just trying to reconnect. He was trying to get rid of me. And the vodka was the instrument. I immediately called David. David, Julian just called. He's furious I gave you the vodka. Archer, you won't believe this. I just had it analyzed. It was laced with a slow-acting cardiac toxin, enough to cause a fatal heart attack, but gradual enough to look natural. My hand trembled. I knew it. He was trying to poison me. He was, Archer, and he made a critical mistake. He didn't account for your instincts, or your lawyer. The next few days were a blur. David contacted the authorities, and an investigation was launched. Julian was brought in for questioning. He denied everything, of course, but the evidence was mounting. The tracking information on the package, the card in his handwriting, the lab results from the vodka, and my testimony about his reaction when I told him I'd given it to David. Then came the call from my granddaughter, Emma. Her bright, unguarded face filled my screen. "Grandpa, you answered," she chirped, a gap where her front tooth used to be. "Dad says we're going to be rich soon. He talks to somebody named Vinny a lot. Like every day. Is Vinny your friend?" My throat closed. "No, sweetheart. Vinny's not my friend. Dad mentions you when he talks to Vinny. He locks himself in his office and talks really quiet, but I heard him say your name once, and something about insurance." She wrinkled her nose. "What's insurance?" The words hit me like ice water. Julian hadn't just planned my death. He'd talked about it openly enough that a 10-year-old had picked up fragments. He was negotiating the terms of my life insurance with Vinny Russo, a known enforcer for a local crime syndicate, while his daughter played in the next room. Emma's innocent chatter continued, revealing more pieces of the puzzle. Her mother, Sarah, had been crying, arguing with Julian, saying she didn't sign up for this. Julian had bought Emma a new iPad, an early birthday present, paid for with money he expected to collect once I was gone. Emma even confessed that Julian had told her not to talk to me about the Vinny stuff. I closed my journal, where I'd meticulously documented every detail, and called Frank Miller, a detective I'd worked with for years. "Frank, I just talked to Emma. Julian's been on the phone with Vinny Russo regularly. He's told Emma they're going to be rich soon, and she overheard him mention my name and life insurance." A pause. "Out of the mouths of babes," Frank said, his voice grim. "This changes everything, Archer. We've got enough for an arrest warrant." Julian was arrested a few days later. The news spread like wildfire through Ridgeview. My son, the IT specialist, accused of attempting to murder his own father for life insurance money. It was a scandal that rocked our quiet town. The trial was agonizing. Julian maintained his innocence, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, a cruel joke gone wrong. But the evidence, meticulously gathered by David and Frank, was overwhelming. The lab reports on the vodka, the phone records linking Julian to Vinny Russo, the testimony from Vinny himself, who, facing his own charges, had cut a deal, and Emma's innocent, heartbreaking statements to a child psychologist. Sarah, Julian's wife, was devastated. She testified that Julian had been under immense financial pressure, had secretly taken out a large life insurance policy on me, and had become increasingly distant and secretive. She hadn't known about the poisoning attempt, but she had suspected something was terribly wrong. The jury deliberated for only a few hours. Guilty. The word echoed through the courtroom, a final, crushing blow. Julian, my son, was led away in handcuffs, his face pale and devoid of emotion. The aftermath was a different kind of pain. Emma, bewildered and heartbroken, struggled to understand why her dad was gone. Sarah, left to pick up the pieces, moved back to her hometown, taking Emma with her. My once full house felt emptier than ever. A few weeks after the trial, Sarah called. "Archer," she said, her voice soft. "Emma wants to see you. She misses you terribly." I drove the 300 miles to their new home. Emma, seeing me, ran into my arms, her small body shaking with sobs. We spent the day baking cookies, a tradition Kate and I used to share with Julian when he was little. As the first batch cooled, Emma wandered into the living room and found the photo album on the coffee table. She carried it back to the kitchen and climbed onto the stool, flipping through the pages. "Is this Dad?" she asked, pointing to a picture of Julian at 8 years old, standing beside a creek with a fishing rod, a gap-toothed grin on his face. I stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder. "That's him. We went fishing that day. He caught a trout almost as big as he was." Emma traced the image with one finger. "He looks happy." He was. For a long time he was very happy. "What happened?" I sat down beside her. "He got lost, I think. Life got complicated, and he made choices that took him farther and farther away from the person he used to be. By the time he realized how far he'd gone, he didn't know how to come back." Emma was quiet. Then she said, "Do you think he'll ever find his way back?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. But hope doesn't always mean things will turn out the way we want." She nodded, solemn and small, and closed the album. At 8 p.m., Sarah arrived to pick her up. Emma hugged me tightly at the door, her arms wrapped around my waist. "I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, Emma. More than you'll ever know." Sarah met my eyes over Emma's head, her expression tired but grateful. "Thank you, Archer." I nodded. "Take care of her." "I will." I watched them walk to the car through the falling snow, Emma's red coat bright against the white, and didn't close the door until their taillights disappeared. I sat at the kitchen table with my journal open, the pen heavy in my hand. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, the house felt emptier than it had in weeks. I began to write. December 23rd, 2024, 8:15 p.m. 1 week from today, Julian will be sentenced. Frank called this afternoon. The prosecutor is recommending 25 years with parole eligibility after 15. I won't be there. I've sat through enough courtrooms. For 48 hours after David was poisoned, I was the prime suspect. That stain doesn't wash off easily. Julian will spend the next 15 years, maybe more, in a cell, and I will spend them here, trying to make sense of what he became, trying to remember the boy in the photograph, the one who laughed and fished and believed his father was a hero. I paused, staring at the words, then looked at Kate's photograph on the mantel. I whispered to her image, "I tried to save him, Kate. I did everything I could, but I couldn't." I picked up the pen again. "But I can save Emma. She's still innocent, still whole, and maybe that's enough." I closed the journal. Through the window, the snow fell soft and silent, covering everything. It covered the tire tracks, the footprints, the bare branches of the maples. It covered everything, and for the first time in 2 months, I let myself believe that Kate had been right, that the first snow gave you permission to start over. Outside, the world was white and quiet and new. If you've stayed with me this far, I want you to understand something. This family story isn't just mine. It belongs to every parent who's watched a child drift beyond reach, every father forced to choose between love and what's right. My family story taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, and sometimes those we trust most become strangers. I made mistakes. I was too busy being the detective, solving everyone else's problems while missing the poison in my own home. God knows I wish I'd seen the signs before Julian chose dad revenge over redemption. His twisted dad revenge. Poisoning me for money, letting me become the suspect. It cost him everything. His freedom, his daughter, his soul. So here's my advice. Don't wait until betrayal forces your hand. Talk to your children. Ask the hard questions. Be present, not perfect. If someone you love is drowning in debt or desperation, don't look away. My son sought dad revenge when what he needed was help. Don't let your family story end like mine. Emma still visits, the snow still falls, and I still believe that some part of the boy I raised is in there, lost, but not gone forever. If this moved you, or reminded you of your own struggles, please leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you won't miss what's next. Your support means everything. Thank you for walking this difficult road with me.